everyone, I'm Melanie Raye, and April 15th, 2014 marks 6 years since the Elim tragedy that happened on April 15th, 2008. I was a student at Elim Christian College, and I was affected, as so many others were, by this horrendous tragedy. And as we've just passed the 6-year anniversary, I wanted to make this video for my channel to tell my story of what I went through during that time, in the hopes that it might encourage someone who might be going through a really hard time or has lost someone right now. It was a Tuesday afternoon, like any other. My classes at my performing arts college didn't end until 4:30, so I didn't arrive home until 6:30. Normally I'd walk home to a fairly peaceful house, go to my room, put away my things, and maybe chat online for a little while until dinner was ready. Not that day though. That Tuesday was different. My mother was at the sliding door waiting to greet me when I arrived. She had just gotten off the phone. This is how she greeted me. "Melanie, don't go on the phone or on the internet. People are missing. We don't know if they're Elim yet, but they could be." My mind boggled. So many new people I knew and loved were down at the camp, my brother Nate included. Even the possibility that he could be in danger was enough to make my heart start pounding. Immediately I sat down in front of the television on which TV3 was playing. Apparently, my mother had been packing boxes in the hallway for my family, apart from me, to move to Australia. At just after 6 p.m, my auntie had rung, asking if my brother Nate was okay. At first, my mum didn't understand, until my auntie explained that it had just been announced on the news that a group of students had been swept down the Mangatapopo River. Knowing that Nate was down there, she rang my mum right away to hear if Nate was okay. Of course, the news of the missing children put my mother on the phone within minutes. She spoke to several people, including the girls' dean and the head of secondary. At first, we thought that the students couldn't be from Elim, as they weren't expected to be gorging that day, just doing the high ropes. A short while later, though, we learned that they were from Elim. For a long time, we couldn't be sure just how many were missing. The numbers varied anywhere between 6 and 10. We got a call from my second cousin's mum telling us that Ashley was missing. Of course, we were very worried about her. It is at this point that I went and had a shower, struggling to hold back the tears as I begged for the life of my brother and my cousin. I got out of the shower to the news that Ashley had been found, thank God, but we found out that there were 7 students missing. It was a grueling wait to find out if my brother was okay. Thank God we found out that he was. My mum had texted my dad, who was in Tokyo on business, telling him to please ring her urgently, and he was on the phone within 30 seconds. We were able to tell him that Nate was okay, but that 7 students were missing. I watched the news all through the evening, barely touching the vegetable soup that my mother had prepared for dinner. I was far too worried to eat. I started texting my good friend Jess, knowing that her cousin Anthony was also down at the camp. I told her that I was praying for them both. At around 10 p.m, we heard on the news that 4 students were confirmed dead. At that point, I just sat in shock, unable to talk or even cry. But when, at 11 p.m, we heard that there were 5 confirmed dead, the floodgates opened. I cried and cried as my mother, my brother Daniel and I prayed and prayed. I tried going to bed at 1 a.m, and my brother Dan went to bed then also, but soon I was out in the lounge with the TV on again. I just could not sleep. At 3 a.m, I hopped into bed again, and had only been there a few minutes when the phone rang. From the tone of my mother's voice, I knew it was Nate on the phone. My mum sounded relieved to hear his voice. It meant he really was fine. He told my mum the names of the students who had died. And there were 6 students in total and 1 teacher. Floyd, my brother's best friend and a close friend of mine as well from worship team. Anthony, cousin to my close friends Rachel and Jessica, and had also been in my correspondence class that year. Tom Hugh, who I had heard speak at the one conference the year before that, and he was known for going around the school and high-fiving everyone he walked past. Portia, a girl I had known since primary school. We'd grown up together. Tara, another really good friend of my brother's. Natasha, who had been a good friend of mine for 6 years through worship team and correspondence, and Tony McLean as a teacher, who I had not known well personally, but I was very friendly with his sweet younger sister Hannah through worship team, and he was also a teacher that everyone looked up to. When my mum got off the phone, she came down to my room and told me the 7 people that had passed away. I cried again, and we prayed again. I never actually went to sleep. I just lay there until I heard my brother Dan stirring at 5:30 a.m, and I took him up to Mum, and she told him the 7 that had passed as well. The rest of that morning is basically a blur. I do remember calling the receptionist at my performing arts college to tell her that I would be taking the day off and why. And in the car on the way to Elim, where I was going to spend the day, I was trying to manage 3 cell phones, mine, my mum's, and my brother Nate's that he had left behind, while my mum drove the car. Everybody was ringing and texting me at the same time. I arrived at Elim and saw my best friend Amy in the foyer. We embraced and then walked up to the mezzanine floor together. We listened as the principal read out the names of the deceased, and then prayed and said we could grieve in the chapel and auditorium for as long as we liked. Youth leaders and counsellors were walking around, hugging people and passing out tissues. Even the Mayor of Auckland was there passing out tissues that day. Meanwhile, the chapel was being used as a place where we could write tributes and draw pictures, which were then blue tacked onto the chapel walls. The walls and ceiling quickly filled, and the tributes continued out into the foyer of the church. At around midday, my youth pastor and the new head pastor from my old family's church showed up to express their condolences. Around that time also, Jess and Rach, cousins to Anthony, arrived, and I hugged them. And then Janice, Floyd's little sister, arrived, and she cried in my arms for a while. At that point, I started getting impatient for the bus of remaining students to arrive. I desperately wanted to see Nate. I would have to wait a while longer though. The bus didn't pull up until about 2 p.m. As the students started to file in, I heard my mum say through her tears, "Come on, come on." I convinced myself that I was going to be strong for her and Nate. That plan temporarily went out from the window though, as I saw Nate emerge from the crowd of students. Mum, Dan and I pushed past chairs and people to reach him, all embracing him at once and crying. All the hugging is what I remember the most from that afternoon. The funerals that were to come were all difficult yet beautiful in their own ways, as was the memorial service where we celebrated the amazing young people we had lost. Through it all, there is one verse that constantly comes into my head. And now these 3 remain, faith, hope and love, but the greatest of these is love, and that's 1 Corinthians 13:13. We need to have faith that God knows what he's doing despite this tragedy. We need to have hope for the future, come what may. But most of all, we need to love. Love God and love those around us with everything we have within us, never taking anyone for granted, because we never know when they might be taken from us. So pull those you love a little closer and draw nearer to God in the process. Rest in peace, Floydle, Ants, Tom, Portia, Tara, Tashi, and Mr. McLean. We'll never forget you, and we'll see you again soon. So that brings me to the end of that part. And now, not long after the tragedy happened, I actually wrote a song, more specifically for Natasha, who I was very close to, called Surreal. And I would like to sing it for you now, just a cappella. There's a photo in my album captured not too long ago. Your eyes are like your smile, so bright as you were dancing your way home. It brings back vivid memories, the ones that make the tears flow. Think I'll sit here for a while and wonder why you had to go. 'Cause oh, how surreal it seems that the only place I see you now is in the canyon of my dreams. It brings back vivid memories and a sense of melancholy. 'Cause all I want is to be with you for eternity. Think I'll stick a little longer here before my time will come, and then I'll meet meet you once again in the everlasting sun. So wait for me, my darling. Oh, how so real it seems that the only place I see you now is in the canyon of my dreams. It brings back vivid memories and a sense of melancholy. 'Cause all I want is to be with you. All I want is to be with you. All I want is to be with you for eternity. So there you go, guys. I hope that maybe my story can help some of you. And if you are grieving right now, I pray that God will comfort you and put his arms around you and give you people who can support you during this time. I love you all. Bye.